Just to emphasize what Rick was saying, you are really on a rocket ship. You're on a company that is going to transform the commercial construction industry, starting here in Oklahoma City and beyond, as they say. And the leadership in this company is dedicated to doing that. Because you're part of the leadership in this company being dedicated to do that, you're going to reap the benefits of it. And Rick, you were saying that the foundation is trust. You're absolutely right. Trust for teamwork is the foundation. You can envision a pyramid with trust being the foundation. Without that trust, a team cannot work effectively. The next level is healthy conflict, because you want to be able to, as you were saying, Rick, voice disagreement, but do it in a healthy way. Never get personal. It's always the concepts. It's always the ideas. And that's why you're all here, is because if Josh and Dima and Frey had all the answers, they wouldn't need you guys. And so that's why you're here, to give your best. And that's the second foundation, is healthy conflict. The third is commitment. Commitment to whatever the decisions are made, regardless of what I felt like doing coming into the meeting. When a decision is made, we're all in. I remember when I was building my company in Michigan, we had a member of the team, of the executive team, that struggled with that commitment level. And if they didn't like the decision that was made, they'd go out and tell the people that they were in charge of that this is the decision, but I'm not for it. What do you think that did to the teamwork? What do you think that did with the company growing? We had to let that person go when we found out about it. It's either all in or all off. So commitment is number 3. Number 4 is accountability. And you mentioned that as well, Rick. Accountability is critical to each other, not just to whomever we report to. Accountability to each other. Because when we're accountable to each other, that brings out the best in all of us. If it's just vertical accountability, what happens in a company where only vertical accountability exists is people just try to keep their heads down and try to get away with whatever they can. When you get this peer-to-peer accountability, oh my gosh, my team members are dependent upon me. And then finally, attention to results. That's the peak of the pyramid for teamwork, is attention to results, not activity. It's not the activity that matters, it's the results. And it's the results of the organization, not my results. Ever been part of a team where somebody on the team had one agenda? I want to be the star. It's all about me. My results are all that matters, and I will do whatever I can to make sure that that happens. Don't care about the rest of you guys. Ever been a part of a team where somebody on the team was like that? Yeah, we've all experienced that, and that's incredibly destructive. So, Rick, thank you for that great introduction, because the bottom line, what I'm talking about here is a critical ingredient for everybody working together as a team and fulfilling those 5 levels of the team, and that is to understand that people are wired differently. Every one of us has what's called a personality, and there's not a single person in here that has an identical personality to everybody else. So how do you model that? Well, the DISC brings it down into really simple concepts. And the reason why I like the DISC is because I can remember those concepts, and when I meet somebody, I can, after a period of time, I can tell what their personality is like, and therefore get a general idea of what drives them, how I can best communicate with them, and how I can best interface with them as either a team member or a friend or even my spouse. We'll get into that as we go on. So how many people here are familiar with the DISC? All right. So you've worked with it in the past, and some of you are not familiar with the DISC. So hang on, get ready for an education, because the DISC is going to help you understand yourself better, number 1. And number 2, help you understand others better. And when you can do that, as Rick says, that helps with teamwork. So today, there's only one failure. Guess what that failure is? Yes, failure to participate. I want you guys to participate. I want your feedback. I want some back and forth here. Will you give me that? Do I have your permission to extract that from you guys? Because when we participate, what happens? We learn more, we retain more, right? Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so there's 4 steps to learning. And when I learned this, I thought it was really interesting. These steps go like this. Unconscious incompetent. In other words, we don't know what we don't know. It's kind of like, imagine an infant. An infant doesn't know that it can't drive a car, right? It doesn't know that. It's never entered their minds. So an infant is in the unconscious incompetent state. There's many concepts out there that I am in the unconscious incompetent state. I just even don't know what I don't know. Then there's the conscious incompetent state. A certain period of time, as that child grows, they see their dad or mom driving a car and they realize, oh, I don't know how to do that. So now they're in the conscious incompetent state. For instance, I know that I do not know how to conduct or perform brain surgery. So I'm in the conscious incompetent state as it relates to brain surgery. And then there's the conscious competent state. This is, remember when you were learning to drive, how you had to think about every little thing and be totally focused, and it was kind of draining at times? Who here learned how to drive the first time on a stick? Yeah, that really tests you, doesn't it? You got to think of so many things. You got to be coordinated, check the mirrors, and make sure you know what's going around, and push that clutch in at the right time. Don't grind those gears. Turn the turn signals on. Turn so I don't hit the curb, or turn so I don't swing into the other lane. And all this stuff's going on at the same time, and it's exhausting, right? Remember those days? I remember teaching my daughter how to drive a stick the first time. It was one of the most frustrating experiences I ever had. And then the next one is unconscious competent. How many people have ever driven someplace and they don't even remember how they got there? Yeah, I mean, you're just driving along, you're not even thinking about what you're doing, mind's somewhere else. You're in what's called downtime as it relates to driving, because you're in uptime as it relates to something else. You might be thinking about something you had to do on the job, and you get there, and you don't even remember how you got there. That's the unconscious competent state. So those are the 4 levels. Unconscious incompetent, conscious incompetent, conscious competent, and unconscious competent. Everything we do goes through that. So some of you are in the conscious incompetent state right now as it relates to DISC. Because now you know that it exists, so everybody's out of this. Some of you are actually probably in the conscious competent state as it relates to DISC. So I'm hoping to help you even advance even further to the unconscious competent state. And for you that are in the conscious competent state, I definitely want your feedback. And for you that are in the conscious incompetent state, I definitely want your questions. Because here's what happens. Imagine that if you had to drive a B-1 bomber or a tank, you would, even though you're in the unconscious competent state as it relates to cars and driving a car, when you had to drive a tank, you're right back into the conscious incompetent. It's a circle as we learn more and more and more. So that's how we learn. Now, the DISC profile is designed to teach you and others how you behave and communicate. Behavior and communicate. Different styles. If we understand each other's what drives our behavior, we can communicate with them better and to build better relationships. I remember when. How many people here believe that opposites attract? Some do, some don't. Well, I'm a firm believer of that, and I've seen that over and over and over again, especially with the DISC. Opposite personalities attract. And here's an interesting theory that I have. I have no empirical data to back it up, but I believe this is true. That what originally attracts us to our significant other is the opposites. It actually completes us. But then after 4 or 5 years, those opposites start to get on our nerves.
4 or 5 years? with Heather, it's 4 or 5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes.
Just at a faster pace.
So I guess that resonated with a few people in here, right? And my wife and I are diametrically opposites on the disc. And when we took the disc, I took the disc first, and I had her take the disc. All of a sudden, I understood why she did the things she did. And she understood why I did the things I did, and our relationship improved. So those opposites that originally attracted me to Cheryl got on my nerves after 4 or 5 years. Now we've been married for almost, well, over 39 years. 39 years of uninterrupted bliss. It's not here, is she? She'll say, and bliss stirs. But now, those things that used to get on my nerves, they don't get on my nerves as much as they used to, because now I understand. I got understanding. And so that's why it's going to help you to build better relationships. So the behavior styles works like this. It's just a 4-box grid conceptually. And it has to do with, some people are really task focused, and some are really people focused. And it's a gradient. You know, you're not on one extreme or the other, it's a gradient. We all lie somewhere on the really, ultimately, intensely people focused, or pretty balanced, or ultimately intensely task focused, or somewhere on this gradient. You might not know where you are yet. I think everybody in here has taken the disc, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then you probably do know where you are on this gradient. And then the other gradient is outgoing versus reserved. That's an easier one to determine. And that gradient is somebody that always has to be the life of the party and always has to be the center of attention, to a wallflower and everything in between. Those are our personalities. That's how we're made. Every one of us is wired differently. But understanding these personalities is going to help you be better at what you do, better in your relationships, better relationships with your team. So, a high D is very task-focused and outgoing. A high I is very people-focused and outgoing. A high S is very people-focused but reserved. And a high C is task-focused but reserved. So let's talk about these a little bit. The high D, hence DISC, D-I-S-C, the high D stands for, anybody know? Determined. Dominant, determined, yes, driven. It's almost like the quintessential high D, the one that's a high D off the charts that everybody knows is our soon-to-be president. Right? He's a high D off the charts. And a high D has a really strong need to win. They're usually your leaders. They're usually the people, the CEOs, the entrepreneurs, the generals, take the hill. They're intensely goal-oriented. Now, if they don't have much of a people section in there, or balance in their DISC profile, they'll tend to run over people to get there, which is bad. Here's something that we all have to understand. Every one of these is good, and every one of these has a downside. And there's not a business on the planet that can grow effectively without having a team that consists of all of these. Because if everybody on the team is a high D, there's going to be hair and eyeballs all over the place. There's blood flowing out from underneath the door. Now high I, that stands for influence. High I's are really great people influencers, people motivators. They inspire us to do things. They bring out the best of us. They love lots of people. They love stages. They love the limelight. And they love to sell. Everybody has to have high I's on their team. Right? Now, the downside with a high I is they tend to be squirrel. Squirrel. and if you have everybody that's a high I on the team, it's just a party. It's just nothing gets done. It's just a party. Because they love to have fun. And a high I's need is to be appreciated. So understanding the needs that drive each one of these personalities is going to help you to relate better. A high S, everybody know what that stands for?
Strategic?
Steady?
Steady! Thanks for participating, by the way. Steady. Steady. Saneness. Safety. Those three words begin with an S. S. Steady. Saneness. Safety. They're very people-oriented, but they're reserved. They tend to be nurturers. They tend to be really warm, embracing type of people. Relationships really matter for high S's. Deep relationships. A high I might have 1,000 friends, and a high S will have 4 or 5 really deep friendships. That's the difference between a high I and a high S. Counselors, pastors, nurses, customer service people that are really good at developing deep relationships. High S's are superb at doing that. The need for a high S is to be loved. We all have a need to be loved, but that's the driver for a high S. And the danger if you had everybody that was a high S in the company, again, you wouldn't get anything done because it would all be a love fest, a kumbaya. Hold hands and let's sing around the campfire. Let's talk about our deepest emotions. But but see, you see, everything has a plus or a minus. Then we get to the high C. What does the C stand for? Conscientious, that's right. Conscientious, or compliant, or correct. 3 C's that relate to this personality. Very task-focused and reserved. These are your engineers, your accountants, auto mechanics. Technicians are typically have a high C, and it's a good thing because high C's pay attention to details. For a high C, there's very little gray area in life. 2 plus 2 is always 4. It's never 4.5 and it's never 3.5. It's always 4, and it's a good thing, right? Because if this building was built by a bunch of eyes or designed by a bunch of eyes, we'd be in trouble, wouldn't we? Why is it doing this? There's no wind. And so high C's are very correct-driven. Their need is to be correct, to be right. And that's a good thing. So that's the predominant personality factors in a DISC. So every one of you has one of these that's more dominant than the rest. And then we tend to have a secondary one that hopefully brings balance to our lives as well and helps us to reach across the aisle, so to speak, to other DISCs. Because if we are just so intensely one of these, the downside of being of our personality becomes more amplified because we don't have some offsetting. Okay. So, how many D's do we have in the room? All right. How many I's do we have in the room? Excellent. I love that. Yeah, pick me. How many S's do we have in the room? Excellent. And how many C's do we have in the room? Outstanding. Outstanding. That's great. So now, one of the things that I got this from Action Coach, which is one of the coaching organizations through whom I'm certified. And one of the things that Action Coach did when they started using this is they had everybody put their disc on the doorway to their office. So that everybody knew who they were coming in to meet with, and they could adjust. So we're going to talk about that. So disc styles, number D, or high D is dominant. They enjoy challenges. A high I, influence. They enjoy contacts. A high S, steadiness, consistency, routine. You do not want to give a high S an environment that's constantly changing, because that is not safe. That is not the same. Now, it's a good thing, because if you give a high I something that's routine, they'll slit their throats. Their own throats. Like my wife is a high SC. She's an artist. And Cheryl could spend her whole day working on her art and never interface with another human being and be just fine. And so if Cheryl and I were captured by terrorists and they put her in solitary confinement, she would thrive. If they put me in solitary confinement, I'd be dead in a week.
Me? I wouldn't even make it 2 days.
So that's some insight. So, and conscientious enjoys constraints, order, structure, boundaries, barriers. Because it's either right or it's wrong. There's no gray area. So think about your personality. Think about the personality of the people that you have to work with every single day as it relates to this. So how do you detect a high D? Self-assured, decisive, adventuresome, risk-taker, competitive, daring, forceful, direct, innovative, persistent, problem solver, results-oriented, self-starter. Right? Right, Dima? Right, Frey? I know that these two are high Ds. All right.
Plaques that we'll hand out.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. How to detect the high I? Charming, confident, persuasive, gregarious, influential, sociable, enthusiastic, optimistic, popular, trusting, convincing.
What?
Does that resonate?
I think Elliot's super antisocial.
Elliot is super antisocial?
Absolutely.
And that's Elliot? The high I is antisocial?
No.
I don't think so if I spun that smile on your face, Elliot. Yeah. So one good thing about this, though, is optimism. People that are optimists statistically make, on average, 5 to 6 times more than pessimists in their
Yay.
lifetime. Just so you know that. That's a good trait to have. However, people that are optimistic are also easy touches. So they tend to lose a lot of that money in the course of their life. Easy come, easy go. Flow in, flow out. High eyes are the best salespeople, but they're also the easiest people to sell. So when you're in a selling situation, if you come up with a high I, that's a green light. Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit. All right? How do you detect a high S? Sincere, loyal, patient, good listener, relaxed, team player, stable, amiable, steady, understanding, quiet. We need people like that. My wife is that way. That's one of the reasons why I married her. It's because she exuded this warmth that I didn't have. Because I was always take the hill, Mach 7 speed. Cheryl slowed me up and taught me there's more to life than hitting goals. And that was good for me. Because relationships are really important in life. This is something that she's taught me to work on. It's like, Lord, I want patience and I want it now. And then how to detect a high C? Accurate, analytical, conscientious, systematic, high standards, fact finder, mature, diplomatic, courteous, precise. High C's do not like people that cut up a lot and are kind of, quote, immature. Because that's a waste of time and a waste of energy. However, high C's are precise. Aren't you glad that your CPA is a high C? Right? In fact, I have yet to meet a CPA that isn't a high C, either first or second in their personality profile. But I missed something. Participate. Help me laugh
Telling
here.
Tanya, so Tanya changed, when she came in, she was APM of facility management. She came a year and a half ago. And somewhere along the way, she came in and we needed an accounting manager, and she said, I want to change, my major's at school, and I want to change positions at work into accounting, and so we're just talking about how.
And are you a high C?
Yeah. So the progression.
There you go. It's amazing. Now, Jim Collins in his book Good to Great says that to create the ultimate team, first of all, you got to get the right people on your bus. They got to have the right character and values that are congruent with the culture of the company. Get the right people on the bus in the right seats is number 2. That's personality. Doing the right things, that's priorities. Doing the right things right, that's training. So getting the right people on your bus, in the right seats, doing the right things right. And that's why this is so important, because understanding that your personality is going to fuel you in certain situations and drain you in other situations. So if you're in a role where you constantly feel drained, take a look at your disc, take a look at that role, and see what's draining you about that role, because you might not be in the right seat. When you're in the right seat, you get fueled. Now, not 100% of the time, but you get fueled by the majority of what you do. Okay? Now, I don't know if you can read this or not, but this is a grid that I love to go through to give you a little deeper understanding. I could put a 2-day workshop on this, but I'm not going to do that. I've only got 45 minutes. So, but the dominant style, here's how you can pick up on the dominant style. They're fast and decisive. High influencing style is fast and spontaneous. See the difference? Both are fast. One is decisive, and the other one is, let's party. And then high steady style is slower and relaxed, and the high conscientious style is slower but systematic. Systems drive a high C. You follow the systems. Whereas a high S, it's the relationship that matters, not the system. And then the priority is to hit the goal. The priority for a high I is people. You can't have a party by yourself. It's really hard. It's hard to sell anybody if they're not in the room. Relationships. And finally, the task. Very task-oriented high C. Get the job done correctly. Now, when you're selling to a high C, they don't want to know what time it is. They want to know how the watch is made. A high D just wants to know what time it is. A high I wants to see if it's a pretty watch. And a high S wants to know your story behind that watch. When did you buy it? What's happened since you bought that watch in your life? Okay. So a high D seeks productivity and control. That's why they have a high need to win. High I, participation and applause. That's what high I seek. High S, acceptance. And a high C, accuracy and precision. See how all this works? Strengths. Strengths of a high D. Administration, leadership, and pioneering. It's a high D that wants to break new ground. High Ds have arrows in their back because they're pioneers. They're willing to take risks. They're high risk takers. High Is, their strengths are persuading, motivating, and entertaining. Keeping people engaged. Communicating a message. High S, listening. Listening. Oh, high S's can listen really, really well. When you meet with a high S and you have a conversation with a high S, you feel that you've been listened to. You feel that you've been understood. Whereas a high D, don't bother me with all this minutia. What's the bottom line? Right? And then teamwork. Let's do it together. High S's want to do things together because when you're together, you're fueling relationships and there's less risk. High S's are very risk adverse, as are high